flow like almost pebbles in a stream, or pieces of checkers on a table. And okay, the look's different, the time is different, but the flow, you see where it's flowing from. So we're going to do that for the rest of the class. But before we do, let's look at something of what triggered it. We have some really good excerpts in here. First, we have this chapter C, the new anti-Semitism, which is, I think, has a very nice anti-Semitic text from 1879. So you say, anti-Semitic text already in 1879? Yeah, it's from a writer or a politician or spokesman called Heinrich von Treitschke. And I'm using it because it's in this book and it's available to all of us, so we can see it. And he published this, this essay in fairly well-known or well-regarded German newspaper of the time. And somewhere around this time too, not long afterwards, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion also appeared. And we can talk about that presently. But let's look at von Treitschke's little excerpt here. Among the symptoms of a great change in mood in the German nation, page 80, none appear so strange as the violent movement against the Jews. So you think this fellow is going to be, oh, we do have Protocols of the Elders of Zion right after that. So you think this fellow is going to be sympathetic here. Until a few months ago, the notorious reverse hep-hep call was still dominant in Germany. Now, I don't like to give these things currency, because if you've never heard them, you're better off not having heard them. But in Europe, they would walk behind Jews. I guess Jews who stood out, probably religious Jews with beards, or Hasidim, or different people like that, who you could identify easily. And they would get hep-hep, hep-hep, hep-hep. You say, well, that means Hebrew. No, it didn't. Guess what it meant? Anyone know? Ha Yerushalayim et perduto. It was, I guess, Latin. Ha Yerushalayim et perduto. Jerusalem is lost or fallen. Hep hep. It was an acronym to sort of laugh at them for that. And this is 19 centuries later. This is how deep this kind of thing really is. This is really frightening. So this guy seems like he's against this. This was still dominant in Germany. You know, people could say the worst things they wanted. However, now he gets to his point. You know, it sounds like he's going to say, "Oh, this is terrible." He says, "But if somebody dared speak in just and moderate terms about some undeniable weakness of the Jewish character, he was immediately branded a barbarian and a religious persecutor by nearly all the newspapers." So here, look, everyone has weaknesses, and no one is saying that one shouldn't acknowledge or be willing to point out weaknesses in character. There's hardly anybody who doesn't have weaknesses, but to stigmatize a whole people begins to be a bit overly much, as Marx did in World Without Jews. And this sounds to me like, this is the way Patrick Buchanan would talk on television. He's very much in this mindset, strangely enough. He's someone whom I abhor listening to, because I know what he's about, I know what he's aiming at, I know where he's coming from. You know, he may have some respectable conservative views and things like that, but on this subject, I know exactly what it's about and where it's always going. And it's like that. You know, no, we're not allowed to say these things, but why not? We can say these things. And so then he goes on to pour out a certain amount of poisonous, rhetoric that is inflammatory often. Fortunately, he's gone too far, and most people don't listen to him. But there are areas of the population that find this entertaining anyway, if nothing less. But it isn't gone. This isn't gone. It's still there among some. He was immediately branded. That's how that person whom I just mentioned would talk. I'm sure his colleague Mel Gibson would talk the same way about, oh, why can't I talk about these things? It's a free. We're allowed to speak honestly and openly about these things and so on. Yes, as long as it's not incendiary, as long as you're not, taking advantage of a subject that has created impalpable suffering in the past and led to mass murder. It's like crying, fire in a crowded room or something. Today we have already come to the point. This is 1870s, you see, where the majority of the Breslau voters, obviously not in wild excitement with quiet deliberation, conspired not to elect a Jew to the Diet under any circumstances. Oh, finally, we don't have to elect Jews. So the Jews had made quite a few inroads into Germany, even by the 1870s. So the extent that 100 years after, that's why these kind of writings are so illustrative. Mendelssohn, people are saying, well, they've gotten too deep into our society. And of course, this is Hitler 50, 80 years later, is exactly what he's about. Anti-Semitic societies are formed. The Jewish question, you see, the Jewish question. That's what Hitler was talking about. The final solution to the what? To the Jewish question. This is 1870s. We're talking about Hitler, the Wannsee Conference in 1940s. That's almost 70 years later. A flood of anti-Semitic pamphlets appear. There's only too much of dirt and brutality in these doings. Impossible to express one's disgust when one notices that some of these incendiary pamphlets obviously come from Jewish pens, and that is true. Some converts and others who were embittered and so on, people like Marx and others were as vicious as anyone else. It was well known that since Pfefferkorn, and these are two we've never even heard of, but he knows about them, and Eisenmenger, there were always many former Jews among the most fanatical Jew baiters. Jew baiting is really, that's what it was called, Jew baiting, and that's what our filmmaker friend does. It's baiting, it's called Jew baiting. It has an old and honorific or horrific history. And he knows he's doing it. He knows